Whereas, despite decades of investigation and official inquiries, including the Warren Commission and the House Select Committee on Assassinations, the full and truth about the circumstances surrounding these assassinations remain elusive. Public skepticism regarding the findings of official investigations persist, as does a deeply rooted belief that certain facts, documents, and critical evidence were not fully disclosed to the public. The public's right to understand the events surrounding these tragic deaths, including the government's role in investigating them, is a fundamental part of the country's commitment to democracy, transparency, and accountability. The, Ameri- the American people deserve a complete and open reckoning of the facts that were uncovered to ensure that history is not only written but understood as accurately and comprehensively as possible. Whereas public interest in these cases remained extremely high and has continued unbattered for decades. Books, documentaries, research studies, and public discourses on the assassinations have flourished, underscoring the persistent thirst for clarity. The investigation of these is not only a part of historical inquiry but is also deeply intertwined with issues of governmental accountability, transparency, and public trust. It is critical to recognize that public's faith in governmental institutions is directly affected by openness with which government approach past mistakes and tragedies. By engaging in this process, the governmental can begin to address widespread concerns of conspiracy theories, misinformation, and distrust that have plagued the discourse surrounding these events. Whereas the National Archives and Records Administration, the agency charged with preserving the nation's most important currently holds a vast array of materials, documents, and evidence related to investigations into these assassinations. These include, but are not limited to, official records, intelligence reports, law enforcement documents, and surveillance materials, much of which is still classified or redacted. These records represent not only the government's direct responses to these events, but also crucial pieces of historical evidence that could illuminate key questions that have long remained unanswered. The release of these documents is essential to allow historians, researchers, journalists, and the public at large to access new perspectives on the events and their aftermath. This, in turn, will foster a deep understanding of the complex forces at play at the time of the assassinations and how those forces shape the political society climate of the area. Whereas, for more than half a century, many Americans have questioned the conclusions of official investigations, particularly when Warren commissions finding that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone in assassinating President Kennedy. Similarly, doubts about the true motives behind the deaths of Robert F. Kennedy and Dr. King have persisted, fueled by competing theories, fragmented evidence, and complex web of domestic and international political tensions during the Cold War. These questions only have grown as time has passed. with the release of partial information over the years adding a new layers to the mystery without resolving the questions at hand. Full transparency through the declassification of these documents is crucial to clarify any remaining doubts and enhancing public confidence in government's commitment to the truth and accountability. Whereas the declassification of these records serves not only to address historical questions but also to reflect the nation's commitment to democratic ideals. In a democratic society, transparency is vital to the legitimacy of governmental institutions. When the government withholds information about significant events, such as these assassinations, it risks undermining in the integrity of those institutions. The release of these documents is a necessity step towards ensuring that the government is acting in good faith and holding itself accountable to the people it serves. By releasing these records, the government demonstrates it dedicating to uncovering the full truth, regardless of where the truth might lead, and provides the American people with the opportunity to make their own judgments about the past. Whereas this is an overarching belief that despite partial releases of documents over the years, some critical material remain withheld of heavily redacted under the guise of national security or other justifications. The ongoing restrictions on these materials, combined with inconsistent public disclosure, have fueled suspicions that key evidence has been kept hidden from the public view for reasons other than legitimate national security concerns. Full declassification of all related documents is essential to resolving these concerns and and ensuring the public has access to the entirety of the historical record. The release of these documents will be a step towards rebuilding the fractured relationships between government and the American people, fostering a renewed sense of trust and confidence. Now, therefore, by authority vested in me as President of the Constitution and laws of the United States, I hereby follows. So, Section 1, Purpose. The purpose of this executive order is to establish a clear and transparent framework of the declassification and public release of all records, documents, and materials related to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy on Wednesday, 22nd, 1963, Senator Robert F. Kennedy on June 5th, 1968, and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on April 4th, 1968, while ensuring that the release of such material is done in a manner that upholds national security, respects individual privacy, and protects legitimate government interest. This order is designed to address long-standing questions regarding these assassinations, which have a profound impact on American society and the course of global history. These tragic events have led to ongoing public inquiry and speculations, particularly regarding the extent of governmental involvement, intelligence agency activities, and the potential for hidden agenda or conspiratorial forces that may have contributed to these killings. The timely and comprehensive declassification of all related materials will serve the dual purpose of advancing historical scholarships and providing the American public with the information necessity to make informed decisions about the events that shaped their nation's history. The public rights to access information, particularly regarding matters of such national significance, is paramount, and this order seeks to restore trust and confidence in the governmental process surrounding these critical moments in American history. While recognizing the legitimate concerns regarding national security, the protection of privacy and safeguarding of sensitive governmental operations, this order mandates that all relevant documents be carefully reviewed and declassified unless their release would result a compelling risk to national security, public safety, or the privacy of individuals who are not part of the historical events in question. The goal is to strike a balance between full transparency and the protection of critical national interests, ensuring that the public receives as much information as possible while protecting those sensitive elements that could jeopardize the security of the nation or the rights of its citizens. By issuing this order, the administration reaffirms its commitment to openness, accountability, and the belief that governmental transparency is crucial for ensuring that the American people have an accurate and full understanding of their nation's past. The order emphasizes that the declassification process should proceed without delay and with due diligence, allowing the public to engage in fully in the ongoing discussion and reflection surrounding these pivotal figures and their untimely deaths. Ultimately, the purpose of this executive order is to honor the memory of those who lost their lives, the countless lives that were impacted by their assassinations, and the enduring questions about the truth behind these tragedies. Through this order, the United States aims to provide the definite historical accurate accounting of these events. One of the reflected reflects the values of democratic society where transparency and pursuit of the truth are paramount. Section 2. Declassification of records. The declassification requirements records held by federal government concerning the investigations into the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Rob F. Kennedy, and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which are currently classified or redacted, shall be classified in their entirety or to the maximum extent practicable. The classification shall include all information related to investigations, surveillance, intelligent operations, communications, or any relevant materials tied to the affirmation assassination, unless specific national security interest, the protection of sensitive personal data, or the protection of confidential sources and methods warrant continued withholding. National Archives and Records Administration shall oversee the systematic review, classifications, and public release of these records. The NARA, or National Archives and Records Administration, shall establish a transparent process ensuring that the release of records in a timely manner and making them accessible to the public through digital platforms and physical repositories. The classification process must complete as swiftly as possible, but no later than 1 year from the signing of this order, subject to the further extension as deemed necessary by the Director of National Intelligence in consultation of the heads of the relevant agencies. So, Section 3, exceptions and redactions. Exceptions and national security and privacy. While the intent of the executive order is to promote maximum transparency in the classification of records related to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator F. Kennedy, and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., certain exceptions to the full declassification may apply due to national security concerns and the need to protect their privacy. Specifically, the following categories of information may be withheld or redacted from public release to safeguard national interest and individual rights. Classified national security information. Any records that contain classified information related to national defense, intelligence activities, or military operations, where releasing such detail could jeopardize the security of the United States or its allies, may remain redacted or withheld. These include information that pertains to covert operations, active intelligence gathering techniques, or classified military strategies. Sensitive intelligence sources and methods. Any records that reveal intelligence sources, methods, or techniques that are still in use or highly sensitive, such as the identity of confidential informants, undercover agents, or sources of intelligence that could expose ongoing intelligence operations, will be withheld. This protection is necessary to ensure that safety and effectiveness of intelligence operations in the future. Personal identifiable information. To preserve the privacy rights of individuals, the personally identify information such as names, social security numbers, addresses, and other private data that is not directly relevant to the investigation or to public interest surrounding these assassinations may be redacted. This also applies to personal data of individuals who may have been witnesses, informants, or other persons involved in the investigation whose privacy should be kept under laws such as Privacy Act of 1974 and the Freedom of Information Act. The eradication made under these categories shall be done with a view of striking an appropriate balance between public transparency and the protection of legitimate governmental and personal interests. As much as possible, declassified records should be made accessible to the public, with redactions limited to only those portions that are absolutely necessary to protect national security or privacy rights. Oversight or redactions. In order to ensure that declassification process aligns with the goals of this executive order, all decisions to withhold or redact information must be well documented and based on clear justification. The Director of National Intelligence will establish an oversight committee responsible for reviewing all proposed redactions and withholding decisions. The responsibilities of this oversight committee will include reviewing redactions. The committee will assess each instance where records are being withheld or redacted to ensure that the declassification process remains constant with the spirit of executive order, which emphasizes transparency and the release of all records that can be safely disclosed. This review will that the minimum amount of information is redacted and that the redactions are not overly broad or inconsistent with the requirements of national security or private protection. Accountability for withholding. Every redaction or withheld document may be accomplished by a detailed explanation of the reasons for withholding or redacting specific information. These justifications must be submitted to the Oversight Committee for review and approval. The committee will ratify that the redactions are legally justified and that no information is unnecessarily withheld to maintain a more complete record of the events related to the assassinations. Ensuring transparency is redactions. The Oversight Committee will also be tasked with ensuring that the process remains open and transparent with the public interest always in mind. The committee will be responsible for publishing periodic reports that redactions made, the reasons for them, and how much of the declassification material has been made available. These reports will be shared with the public, fostering trust and accountability throughout the declassification process. Ensuring comprehensive disclosure, the committee will make every effort to ensure that the declassification process results in the maximum disclosure of relevant records and that redactions are applied only where truly necessary. This process aims to foster a comprehensive understanding of the historical events surrounding the assassinations while still adhering to the necessary security and privacy protections. In cases where redactions are extensive or where questions about withholding or words arise, the Oversight Committee will be empowered to consult with other relevant agencies or experts to determine whether additional disclosures can be made without compromising national security or privacy. The purpose of this overlay process is to ensure that redactions are justifiable, consistent, and fair. It will allow the public to trust that the declassification process is being conducted with the utmost integrity and that efforts are being made to fully inform the public about the historical records surrounding these tragic events. So, Section 4, Establishment of Oversight Committee. Committee formation in, in order to ensure that integrity, transparency, and proper execution of the declassified process of the Director of National Intelligence shall convene an oversight committee composed to representatives of agencies involved in intelligence, security, and public record keeping. These agencies include, but are not limited to, the National Archives and Records Administration, NARA, responsible for maintaining the historical records and ensuring that the declassification follows proper archive protocols. The Department of Justice, DOJ, ensuring compliance with legal standards, including those related to privacy rights and national security concerns. The Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, reviewing the classification requests in relation to intelligence operations, sources, and methods. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, overseeing the release of records related to law enforcement investigations and sensitive national security information. The relevant agencies such as Department of Defense and the Department of State and any other entities that may hold information pertinent to the investigations of assassinations. The Oversight Committee will be tasked with ensuring the compliance of the declassification process with provisions of this order which are designed to safeguard national security, privacy, and other legal requirements while promoting transparency. The committee will review and approve the declassification and materials and will ensure that the records aligns with the goals of this executive order. Public reporting. To maintain transparency and public confidence, the Oversight Committee will be required to provide regular updates on the President and to the public regarding the status of the declassification process. These update includes progress reports, update on how much of the relevant materials have been reviewed, declassified and released to the public. Challenges faced. Any challenges or obstacles encountered during the declassification process, such as disagreements regarding what constitutes sensitive information or difficulties in ensuring the protection of national security. Public accessibility. Information on how declassified records are being made public available to the public, whether through online platforms, public record office, or other means. Recommendations. The Oversight Committee will provide any recommendations for further actions should unforeseen complications arise that may delay or prevent the timely declassifications of records. These updates shall be made available through official government channels, including the White House website and the National Archives website and the other governmental publications to ensure the public is fully informed of this process and progress. The goal is to create an open, accountable declassification process and allow the American people to have direct access to the information related to these information historical events. So number 5, or section 5 I should say, protection of the privacy and personal data. In accordance with existing laws and to safeguard the privacy rights of individuals, the National Archives and the other relevant agencies involved in the declassification process shall ensure that any personal identifiable information, or other sensitive personal data is properly protected before releasing documents to the public. This includes redaction of personal information. Any personality identification data such as social security numbers, addresses, dates of birth, and other confidential details of individuals who are not directly relevant to the public's understanding of the historical records will be redacted. This applies to individuals such as witnesses, informants, or private citizens whose inclusion in the records is unrelated to the investigation efforts regarding the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Protection of sensitive data. In some instances, documents may be contain sensitive medical records, financial information, or other private data related to individuals that may pose a risk to privacy if released. Such information will be subject to carefully redactions or withholding to protect the privacy of individuals involved. This will be done to compliance with applicable laws, including the Privacy Act of 1974, which governs the collection, maintenance, and dissemination of personal data by federal agencies. Compliance with privacy laws. The classification process shall be conducted in full compliance with all relevant privacy laws, regulations, and including the Freedom of Information Act, which allows access to government records while safeguarding personal privacy, and the Private Act of 1974, which protects individuals from unwarranted invasions of their privacy through the release of government held personal information. Safeguard of sensitive personal data. Any confidential information that is deemed necessary for withholding will be held with the highest degree of security and privacy. If the personal data that is critical to the contents of the assassination investigation, but not directly linked to the national security, agencies must follow a rigorous review process to determine what can be safely redacted without compromising the integrity of the historical records. By incorporating these privacy protections, the classification process will ensure that while the American people gain access to crucial historical information, individual rights are not compromised in the process. The public interest in accessing government records will be balanced with the protection of privacy, ensuring that the sensitive information is only withheld when it is legally necessary and justified. So, Section 6, transparency and the public access. For the public access, upon the declassification of the relevant records and materials concerning the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., these documents shall be made widely accessible to the public. While National Archives and Records Administration will ensure that all records are available through the National Archives online platforms and physical repositories. These records will be organized, indexed, and made searchable to allow easy access for the general public, researchers, and historians alike. The goal of this accessibility is to ensure that American citizens can engage with scrutinize the information surrounding these pivotal events in American history. Making these documents readably available will not only contribute to the historical records, but will also foster a broader public understanding of the events and investigations that follow. Public engagement. In addition to the providing access to the The government will encourage active engagement between the public, historians, and researchers to facilitate a thorough and informed review of the declassified materials. As part of this initiative, the following steps will be taken. Public forums. A series of public forums will be organized where experts and scholars can present, answer questions, and engage with the public about the significance of the declassified materials. These forums may be held in person and virtually, ensuring broad participation from the public. Online tools of engagement. To support public involvement, the government will also develop interactions online platforms where individuals can submit questions, provide feedback, or engage in discussions about the released documents. These tools will allow for an ongoing collaborative approach to the history and context of the JFK, RFK, and MLK investigations. Historians and researchers. The government will actively support academic institutions and researchers in their study of the declassified materials by offering grants or research fellowship designed to encourage academic inquiry and discovery. This will promote the continued scholarly study of these important historical events. By promoting public engagement and open dialogue, this section ensures that the process serves the interest of the American public and constitutes and contributes to an ongoing informed discourse about these critical moments in history. So, moving on to section 7, reporting and final review. Report submission. The Director of National Intelligence, in consulting with the National Archives and other relevant federal agencies, shall be responsible for submitting a comprehensive report to the President. This final report will detail the effort made during the declassification process, including the process of declassification, a summary of how much the relevant material has been declassified and made publicly available, challenges encountered, an overview of any issues faced during the declassification process, such as the need to withhold certain materials for national security reasons or the complexities or protection says sensitive data, personal data. Status of documents. A, stat, a status update on all remaining documents related to the JFK, RFK, and MLK investigations, including which records are still under review, redacted, or withheld. Deadline for reports. The final report must be delivered to the President no later than 1 year from the signing of this executive order, or sooner if possible, ensuring that the President receives a timely update on the declassification efforts. The report will also be made available to the public to maintain transparency regarding the declassification process. Section 8, Judicial Review. Rights to challenge. Nothing in this executive order shall be construed to alter the individuals to challenge the withholding of records in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act or any other applicable law that provides for the release of government documents. Any individual or organizations that believes records were unjustified, withheld, or improperly redacted may seek judicial review in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act or other relevant statutes. Judicial oversight. The government acknowledges that declassification decisions may be subject to scrutiny under judicial review. Courts will have the authority to examine or overturn withholding decisions if it is determined that the records were improperly withheld or that the redactions made under this order did not fully comply with legal standards for declassification and public process. This section ensures that the declassification process is held to legal standards of transparency and fairness, reinforcing the government's commitment to openness and accountability with the balancing of protection and security interests. So, Section 9, Effectiveness Data. This executive order shall take effect immediately upon its signing. As of the signing date, all relevant federal agencies of the departments shall begin to declassification process in accordance with the provision outlined in this order. The Director of National Intelligence and the National Archives will immediately establish procedure and assign personnel to ensure that the swift and thorough implementation of this order. By setting an immediate effective date, this section ensures that the declassification process begins without delaying and that agencies are committed to executive order with urgency and diligence. The President's directive materials that cover all records will be handled in a manner consistent with national security concerns, privacy rights, and other public right to know. So that's it. Signed by Donald J. Trump, President of the United States, January 2025. So let me know your thoughts and greatly appreciate it. And appreciate you hitting that subscription button, like button, and share it to spread this video to the algorithm. And hopefully we can start some discussion on this matter, and see you next video. Take care and have a good day.